Hoop fans, welcome to another buzzer-beating episode of Shot Clock Scribbles, where the minutes are short, but the takes are long. I'm recording this on Monday, April 15th. It's about 4:30 p.m. Pacific time over here on the West Coast. And today, we're cranking up the heat as we dive into the league's sizzling topics, roll out our All-NBA lineup across 3 steamy teams. You don't want to miss out on this. Plus, we're breaking down the play-in tournament with predictions so bold, they should come with a spoiler warning, sizing up the matchups already locked in, and I'll share my first-hand experience from the Kings and Blazers game yesterday on Sunday. Buckle up, basketball fans, it's game time. Let's go. In this first section of the pod, we're going to go over hot topics on the league. We're going to begin with players of the week from the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, respectively, week 25. On the West Coast, we had Nikola Jokic win this honor this week. He averaged 26 and 11, 68% from the field, helping his team to a 3-1 record last week. On the East Coast, we had Jalen Brunson helping his team to a 4-0 record this past week, averaging 38 points and 7 assists on 50% shooting from the field. That is amazing from JB out of New York. Look, the Joker is having a superb year and he's slated to win the MVP any moment now. He's averaging 26 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists, close to a triple-double, while Jalen Brunson helped his team win last night, 120-119, overtime over the Chicago Bulls. He scored 40 points, and he was 46% from the field, although he was 1 out of 4 from 3, 91% from the free throw line. Well-deserved by these two guys, and looking forward to what they do come the playoffs around the corner here. Now we're going to switch gears and speak about the regular season leaders this season. Starting off with De'Aaron Fox, he was the steals leader this season with an average of 2 steals per game. His season high has been 6, so pretty good defense. Swipa is known to play on both sides of the ball. He takes his defensive game just as serious as his offensive game. He doesn't mind talking trash to your best fucking player. He will go back and forth. You never see it get out of hand. But he will talk shit to the biggest players in the game and he will let them know what he thinks. KD Christensen, right here in Sacramento, also talks about that. He needs to continue having that mentality, and big game tomorrow against the Warriors. More on that a little bit later. Moving on to rebounds leader for this season, staying in Sacramento, Domantas Sabonis wins this accolade. His season high this year has been 26 rebounds. He has averaged 13.7 rebounds per game this season. Great numbers from Sabonis, with his double-double streak ending the other week against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I do have him on one of my All-NBA teams. A little bit more about that a little later, so make sure to stick around. We're going to move on now to assist leader. This goes to Tyrese Halliburton, who, of course, had a stellar beginning of the season. His season high has been 23. His season average has been close to 11 at 10.9 assists per game. Moving on now to scoring leader in the association. This belongs to none other than Luka Doncic. His season high this year was 73 against the Atlanta Hawks, the team that he got traded for on draft night. His season average has been 33.9, just a little bit below 34 points per contest. So those are your season leaders. Moving on now to blocks. Victor Wembanyama leads this category, averaging 3.5 blocks. The most that he had during this young season of his is 10. Impressive numbers from the big man out of San Antonio. He really has a great future. We're going to now move on to a press release that just came out today on Monday the 15th out of New York. Coach of the Year. Bring in the drum rolls, please. All right, press release. Oklahoma City Thunder head coach Mark Daniel is the 2024 recipient of the Michael H. Goldberg NBCA Coach of the Year Award, the National Basketball Coaches Association announced today. The Michael H. Goldberg NBCA Coach of the Year Award recognizes the dedication, commitment, and hard work of the NBA coaches and is presented annually to a head coach who helps guide his players to a higher level of performance on the court and shows outstanding service and dedication to the community off the court. It honors the spirit of Mr. Goldberg, the esteemed longtime executive director of the NBCA, who set the standard for loyalty, integrity, love of the game, passionate representation, and tireless promotion of NBA coaching. The award is unique in that it is voted upon the winner's peers, the head coaches of all 30 NBA teams. In total, 5 head coaches received votes reflecting the depth of coaching excellence in the NBA this season. In addition to Daniel, the following head coaches are also votes listed alphabetically: J.B. Bickerstaff out of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Chris Finch, Minnesota Timberwolves, Joe Mazzulla, Boston Celtics, and Jamal Mosley out in Orlando. All right, to sum that all up here, congrats to Mark. He's coached a hell of a season, leading the Thunder to the best seeding in a very long time. And you know what, Mark is a great coach, especially when it comes to X's and O's and calling plays out of the timeout. I think he is very exceptional and one of the best in that regard. And get this, guys, he's only 38 years old. This is a day and age where we're seeing younger coaches than ever before. I remember growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s in particular, we saw a lot of coaches that were old, but it sounds like the game is now phasing into a different aspect, especially with all the Daryl Morey's in the world as far as executives, analytics, and stats. We're going to probably see this a lot moving forward. You have the Utah Jazz's coach. I believe he's in his early 30s as well. A little bit about Mark. He started his coaching at Holy Cross in 2007, followed by being an assistant at Florida before coming to the G League affiliate OKC Blue, who are actually set for a 3-game bout in the G League Championship to end the season. So impressive resume. And let's see how these Thunder do in these playoffs. It's going to be a tough task in the West Coast. It's the first time ever where a team can be 10 games over 500 and barely still make the playoffs. That is the standard that the West brings, and it's just a lot more tougher than the East, right? They could possibly get bounced out depending on who they play, and that's not to put anything down on Mark and his team and what he's done this season, but that's just the reality. Anyway, with that put aside, congratulations to Mark, Coach of the Year, announced today. We're going to switch gears and talk about something else here, and that is the NBA has broken its all-time attendance record. The arenas filled to an all-time high 98% capacity. So to break that down, this year's total attendance of 22.5 million surpasses the association's previous record of 22.2 million set in 22-23 season. Couple quick facts here. 872 sellouts, up from the previous record 791 in 2022-2023 season. 71% of games sold out. That is up from 63% in 2022-2023 season. An average attendance of 18,322. That is up from 18,077 in 2022-2023. I'm sure Adam Silver and the executives, Joe Dumars and the others, are going to be excited about that. It definitely puts them in a nice place for negotiation when it comes down to it this offseason. There's 10 teams to have sold out every single home game. I have that list right here. That is the Boston Celtics, Cleveland Cavaliers, Dallas Mavericks, Denver Nuggets, Golden State Warriors, Miami Heat, Timberwolves, Sixers, Suns, and the Sacramento Kings right here in Sacramento. The record-setting season also saw fans from more than 150 countries and territories attend regular season games. Pretty dope. Let's see how things continue to progress and move on forward. The NBA is in a pretty good spot. You have LeBron and Steph getting down there with age. LeBron, no signs of slowing up, as you guys can see. Same with Steph, still playing some amazing basketball. Not in their prime, but are playing pretty good. And then you have guys that are up next in being the face of the league in SGA and Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum of the world. The fun part of this podcast, we'll be talking about all NBA first team, second team, and third team. This list is going to be maybe controversial to some. Everybody has their own opinion. This is my platform. I will have my votes. Obviously, I don't have an official vote, but this is what I would pen it against if I did have a vote. Before we move forward with this list in particular, I want you guys to note that there's certain players that are not eligible for this award due to the 65 game rule, in where these players cannot be considered because they did not meet the threshold. That short list is Desmond Bane, Scotty Barnes, Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, Brandon Ingram, Kyrie Irving, Lauri Markkanen, Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray, Kristaps Porzingis, Anthony Towns. Lastly, but not least, Trae Young. Those players in particular cannot be on this list, so you will not hear them on this list. It's simple as that. So let's get to it. All NBA first team, I have Joker, SGA, Luka, Giannis, who I previously had as the MVP. And you know what? He's the first player in NBA history to average 30 plus points per game on 60% shooting from the field. That is just outrageous. And lastly, Tatum. That's the list that I have. It's pretty hard not to go with this list. My friend Stanley had Anthony Edwards instead of Giannis on this list, which is totally fine, and has had an amazing season, and his team is at the top of the West. So I don't fault him on that prediction there and vote, but that is the short list that I have. Let's move on now to All NBA second team. First, I have LeBron. What he's doing at the oldest player in the league is just nuts at this point. I could possibly put him in the third team, but I left him in the second team. Along with his teammate AD, I have Anthony Edwards, 3, Brunson, and KD. Those are the guys that I have on this list. Yes, of course, maybe I could have put Kawhi as well on this list, but that's the list that I have. Moving on to the All-NBA third team, I have Domas, Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, earlier this season, that team had the best offense ever in NBA history. He hasn't quite looked the same after doing those splits in that home game a couple months back. Number 4, I have Jaylen Brown. I didn't really see too many people having Jaylen Brown on their list, but you know what? Jaylen Brown is a motherfucking dog, and he's a good fucking player on both sides of the ball. I'll most likely have him on my All-NBA first defense too. That's just a little preview on that. High praise for JB. And lastly, I have Steph on this list. I know they haven't done great this season, but Steph has had one of the best seasons that he's had statistically, although his team is at the bottom of the play-in tournaments. Those are the guys I have in my short list, but I do want to know who you guys have in your first, second, and third All-NBA teams. Feel free to put them in the comments below. Would love to hear what you guys' thoughts are. We will now take a right turn and speak about the play-in tournament that is coming up right around the corner on Tuesday. In this part of the podcast, I'll be previewing the 4 games that are going to be taking place, 2 tomorrow on Tuesday and 2 more on Wednesday in the East. Let's start off with game number 1. The Lakers with a pretty dominant win yesterday on Sunday against the Pels. The Lakers stay in the Bayou State to take on the Pelicans, a team they have dominated this season and beat before winning the in-season tournament in December on the 7th. The Lakers have a 3-1 record against the Pels this year, and that's including the in-season tournament, and they're averaging 126.3 points per game this season against the Pelicans. They are a dangerous team against the Pelicans. Typically, the Pelicans have the edge, and they have a lot more size than the teams that they play against, but when they match up against the Lakers, They match up very good with AD, the big man, the former Pelican, Jackson Hayes, although he didn't play that much. They also have Rui, LeBron. You can't forget about LeBron. I just feel like their physicality, they match up their physicality pretty damn good in where the Pelicans typically dominate. They don't do that against the Lakers. So let's look at the last 4 games that the Lakers have played against the Pels this year. First one, they won 133-89. Second one, they lost 109-129. Third one, 139 win, 122. And the last one on the 14th, just yesterday, 124-108 in that game. JV, that's Jonas Valanciunas. He only notched in 2 points yesterday. CJ McCollum is having a tremendous end of the year. He's scoring the ball lights out right now. He was just about 50% from the field and the 3-point shot just yesterday. So the Lakers have to contain him to under 25 points if they really want a good shot at winning. Zion Williamson's another player that continues to struggle against the Lakers. He was tied in minutes played yesterday at 34 minutes, but he only notched in 12 points. Their bench needs to step it up if they really want a chance at the Lakers, because not a lot of their bench really contributed, and they need that, especially when your core is underperforming. You need guys like Dyson Daniels, Trey Murphy III to step up in times like this. Switching gears now, if you're the Lakers, you really feel good about playing the Pelicans again. But like I listened to the post-game conference, LeBron and his team expect the Pels to bring the heat, especially early on tomorrow. It has that playoff feel of playing them and then staying right there in town. He did mention that after the game. The health of Anthony Edwards also remains to be unseen, as he didn't participate in the last few minutes of the game. He did say he's going to suit up. We all know he's a competitor. This is an important game, and he will play. He's not going to maybe be 100%, but he will be there and he'll be playing. I also feel like we have to give Darvin Ham a lot of credit. I think he coached a very good game yesterday, and he's had a fair share of his criticism this year, and rightfully so, but he deserves praise as well. If you're going to say bad things, give the man some praise, him and his coaching staff. They deserve some praise for this game. And what I've typically seen from him is when the games really mean a lot and is on the line, whatever it may be, he really executes a game plan. I feel like yesterday he did a really good job at staggering LeBron and Anthony Davis's minutes. You need one of those guys on the floor at all times. Here's the analogy. In soccer, if you're going to have a weak left back, at least make up for it in having a good midfield player in front of him. That's exactly what Darvin is doing here. I feel like he called timeouts at the right time, especially when the Pels were making a run. A fan fact for you guys, here is LeBron's 28 points, 11 rebounds, and 13 assists, triple-double, and 5 steals versus the Pelicans yesterday. The only other player to achieve this stat line, none other than Magic Johnson in 1981. Guys, LeBron is 39 years old. That is just absurd right there. With all this given, my prediction is the Lakers beat the Pelicans and move on to play the number 1 seed in the Denver Nuggets. I don't want to hear all this talk about they should lose on purpose to avoid playing them and would have a better shot at beating the Oklahoma City Thunder in the other bracket. Like, stop it. Stop that nonsense. If you're the Lakers, you don't back down from the challenge. And you know what? If you beat the Denver Nuggets in the first round, you have a pretty good damn chance of getting to the championship game. The Lakers need to take care of business tomorrow so that they can get prepped for Denver, start making adjustments, watching film, getting rest and recovery as needed. We're going to move on to another playing game tomorrow. That is the Golden State Warriors versus the Sacramento Kings, tipping off at 7 p.m. Pacific time over here on the West Coast. And that is going to be on TNT and HBO Max as well with a doubleheader. Let's go ahead and break this down. These two teams have split the season series 2-2. The Kings dropping the first one early on in the season, then the second matchup in the city where Fox was out early on in the season. This series, let's not forget, was the most watched series last year, and that's including the finals, I believe. So Expect it to be a shootout, and it's a win or go home game. The sense of urgency on both sides needs to be there. The last thing we as fans want to see is a blowout in crucial games like this, to the point where you start switching the game to a different game or putting something else on TV, whatever it may be. This is an important game and it needs to show. The Kings, on the other hand, they'll be looking for redemption as the Warriors, or let's say Steph, dismantled them in Game 7 last year after being down 0-2. I went to Game 3 in the city last year at Chase Center, and where the Warriors got one back and ended up beating the Kings to move on to the next round. I look forward for players like Keon Ellis to step up with important games like this. I know he hasn't played important games like this before, at least not in this magnitude, but he and Davion are going to have to try to contain Steph as much as possible. In addition to Fox, of course, and the other team, they need to have a collective effort in trying to stop Steph as much as possible. And you might not even do that, and he might still go off, but try to definitely have Steph under 25 points. If you can get him below 20, even better, right? The players to watch in this game, obviously Steph averaging 25, 4, and 5, and Foxy averaging 26, 4, and 5. Pretty similar numbers there. Let's take a look at some quick numbers from the Sacramento Kings. First two games they dropped, and then they win the last two in the series here. They jack up a lot of threes. They shot 40 first game, second one 35, third 44, and the last one 48. The Kings are going to jack up a lot of threes. That's just expected. When I look at their field goal percentage, it's actually been decent. Nothing under 40%, which is good because the Warriors can beat you in a different amount of ways. Steve Kerr, you applaud him and his coaching staff. Those guys can shoot the lights out, especially when they get hot. You guys saw the game against the Lakers. They had 26 made threes. I think they were like 26 out of 40. Like, that's just absurd. Those are some quick numbers for the Kings. I also feel like if they have a good chance of winning here, they need to rebound the ball very good. Looney last year really hurt them, especially getting those offensive rebounds. You need to protect the paint and get that rebound, and do not give Golden State second chance points, because if you do, they will make you pay. Moving on now to the Golden State Warriors. This year has been a up and down year for them, especially with the passing of their coach, Dehi, and Draymond suspensions, Clay and Wiggins being moved to the bench at one time during this season. Steph has really carried them this season, and he's having a fantastic year. I know they're in the 10th spot right now, but with games like this, when you really need that dub, no pun intended, this is what Steph lives for and dies for. And I think he's going to seize his moment again. When we look at the Golden State Warriors, they have shot the ball pretty good against the Kings. Nothing below 45% from the field, which is a pretty good recipe for success, especially for the Kings that shoot a lot of three-point shots. So they're going to be looking to get as many points and get on the fast break as much as they can. They have players that are very capable. Jonathan Smart rookie, Podemski, who's been getting a lot of minutes. And then you have Chris Paul anchoring your second unit. It's the first time that Steve Kerr mentioned those Steph-less minutes. That is every single time Steph is not on the floor. They've typically struggled in the past, but he feels more confident than ever, especially having a Hall of Fame point guard in Chris Paul. And I think that's going to be definitely important for them and could be the X factor, to be quite honest with you guys. So my prediction, given all this information, is the Warriors beat the Kings again and kick the Kings out of the playoffs. That is my bold prediction. We're going to now move on to the East Coast and speak about the play-in games taking place on Wednesday here. First up is Miami at the 76ers, 4 p.m. Pacific time on ESPN. When I go through these games in the East, it's not going to be as thorough as I did with the West. On this podcast, I focus a lot on the West Coast teams. So pardon me if I don't go in depth. And if these are your favorite teams, I apologize in advance. Miami and 76ers, these two teams much like the series that we just talked about, split the season series 2-2, 76ers dropping the first two and winning the last two like the Kings, including the game just a few weeks ago here in South Beach. That was one of the first games JoJo played when he came back from his injury, I believe. These two teams, they have a lot of history, especially Jimmy Butler, their former 76ers man, looks to get one over his old team. I was watching that one video that Jimmy basically says, Tobias Harris over me, as he walked into the locker room. These two teams are definitely going to be going at it. For Joel Embiid, he's not eligible for any of the All-NBA awards since he didn't play those 65 games. He is just coming back from injury, and we spoke about that in our last pod. The 76ers really needed to avoid playing in this playing game because of the health of your best player in JoJo. They needed him to get the ample rest that he needed, but it doesn't look like that happens. That is not the case. The winner of this game would go on to go on the road versus the Knicks. The loser would play the winner of the Bulls and Hawks matchup, which we will be talking about in just a second here. My prediction for this game is I see the 76ers pulling this off and winning. I believe that the Heat are probably going to be underdogs to win this game. I think the 76ers take care of business, and they are on an 8-game winning streak right now, in case you guys didn't know. I feel like with that, they'll continue in the ways that they've been playing lately. They have a really good shot at beating the Knicks if they do move on. We'll be looking forward to watching that one on Wednesday. Next game we're going to be previewing here is the Hawks versus the Bulls, taking place at 6:30 Pacific time on ESPN on Wednesday. These two teams have had difficult years, the Bulls being without Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball. They're not at the same level they were last year. They're one of the top teams in the East late last winter. I think around January, they were one of the best teams when I went to go watch them play. But they've really slipped down since that winter that they had last year. Injury to blame. With the Bulls, they lead this season series 2-1. He's had a pretty incredible year despite them being in the 10th position like the Warriors. Trae Young has been injured for the last month and some change. He recently got back and he moves up on the assist ladder. There's lapses where the Hawks look like a better team than their record. They are an exciting team to watch with Clint Capella, and you got Bogey out there. Those guys can be good if they really want to be good and be serious. That's my take on Atlanta. I watched them play in January. That was on the 20th. The Kings beat the Hawks that night. But my prediction is they continue their winning ways. The Bulls edge out the Hawks. We'll see what the offseason looks like for the Compton native DeMar DeRozan, who has averaged 24-5 this season. The thing with the Bulls is they don't turn the ball over very much. They're third in the league in that statistical category. They're in the upper half with their shooting from the field. They sit at the 10th spot in the league. Another thing is they don't score enough points. They are at 22 in the league. So you want to see the Bulls score more points. Obviously, Kobe White deserves the nod as the most improved player this season, although Tyrese Maxey is going to end up winning that award probably at any time this week. But Kobe, man, he is setting himself up for a nice payday in this offseason. Moving on, and we stick around speaking about the playoffs, but this will be the playoffs preview and early predictions. In this section of the podcast, we're going to go over games that are going to go on for sure. Those are the ones that we know are for sure going to happen. We're going to be giving our predictions, going thoroughly on these predictions on the next podcast. Let's go ahead and go over that. Starting in the West, like we do at this time, I go for mine. I got to shine. Now throw your hands up in the sky. First game, Mavs versus the Clippers. My prediction is the Mavs win that one. Moving on to the Suns versus the Wolves. My prediction is that the Suns win this one. Moving on to the East Coast, Cavs versus the Orlando Magic. I think the Magic beat the Cavs in this 7-game series. Those guys have actually split the season series 2-2. Last game is the Bucks versus the Pacers. I predict the Bucks are going to beat the Pacers here. That's probably even without Giannis not being 100%. Like I said, we're going to go more thoroughly on these games on the next pod. But now let's talk about the playoffs. The playoffs start on April 20th. That is Saturday, April 20th. And these are the games that are bound to happen. The East 7th seed play the Knicks. We already talked about the Magic playing the Cavs. Then the West 7th seed playing the Denver Nuggets, the Timberwolves versus the Suns. The next day on Sunday, April 21st, we're going to see the East 8th seed play the Boston Celtics, the Pacers versus the Bucks, West 8th seed versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. Another exciting one, LA Clippers versus the Dallas Mavs. This is coming down towards the end of the season. This is the time that the best players in the league show what they have. A lot of the players get judged by how they do in the postseason. Some players could stink up the joint, while others could arise for this special time of year. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm pretty damn sure you guys are out there. Let's bring the popcorn out, and it should be a wild ride for this one. In this section of the pod, I'll be talking about the game I went to yesterday. That is the Sacramento Kings versus the Blazers. That went down yesterday at 12:30. It was a day game. It was a nice time to go out. It wasn't the hottest day, but it was still enjoyable sitting there in the lower level section. I did enjoy my time. People started leaving the game in the third quarter where the Kings were basically up 40 plus points at one point. The largest lead that they had was 44. Looking at the box score here, Foxy was aggressive and he looked to really get his. He shot efficient. He was 71% from the field. Honestly, with this game, guys, I just thought that the Kings played the right way and used this game as like a practice game. No disrespect to the Blazers, to really sharpen some of the things that they've been preaching this year and that Mike and his team have really been getting on the Kings players about. And that's closing out on shooters, making the extra pass, and shooting the ball whenever you have the opportunity. Mike has given you the green light to let it fly. They use this opportunity to do just that. Although the Blazers self-inflicted wounds, some of their best players were not even playing in this game. They limit the Blazers to just 31% shooting from the field and just 15% shooting from the three. That is just fucking atrocious as it's going to get. They were above 80% from the free throw line, which we've talked about before. The Kings are not a good free throw shooting team, and it does look like maybe they have been practicing that as time goes by. That is higher than their season average, which is just a hair above 70%. That is a welcoming sign, especially before you go into this play-in game against the Warriors tomorrow. Also, they made just about half of their shots. They were about 50% from the field. 14 turnovers, which is not great. And I'm sure Mike and his team don't like that. And Domas, actually, believe it or not, he is the second highest turnover man in the league. Luka Doncic being number one, but Domas is right there at 2 with the most turnovers. In this game, he had 4 turnovers. Not good. On the bright side for the Blazers, Chris Murray, Keegan Murray's twin, notched in a game-high 18 rebounds. He let his brother know how he feels at the line, letting him know, hey, look how many rebounds I got. You see that? Also, I just felt like the Blazers showed their frustration in different ways. There were 2 players that got hit with a flagrant, one of them being Moore, which I kept laughing and saying he needs to buy a punching bag after hitting, I believe that was Foxy hit. And then Banton getting a flagrant 2 and getting thrown out of the game with just a few minutes to go. It's pretty embarrassing when you're hitting Kobe Jones, the rookie and the young player. I don't know what his beef was. I don't know if those guys have history or whatever it may be, but that's just terrible sportsmanship from Chauncey Billups' Blazers. Honestly, those guys were fucking terrible yesterday. We talked about Scoot Henderson. Sharp didn't play. Simmons didn't play. Matisse Thybulle didn't play as well. They're all DNPs. One shining spot, Duop Reith. I do like the big man, number 26. He had 14 points in this one, 5 out of 12 from the field, but that was probably one of the better players. Delano Banton that we just talked about there, he led the Blazers with 17 points. Every single player played yesterday, and that's a welcoming sign for the Kings. You want to beat these guys pretty good. And then I was advocating for Mike to start putting in the bench and putting in those two-way guys like Jalen Slauson, Kobe Jones, Mason Jones out of the affiliate with the Stockton Kings. He did just that. There was a point where they started to lapse and they started playing like shit. They just picked it up towards the end of the game. They were 38% from three. Pretty good win for the Kings, and they move on to play the Warriors tomorrow night. Should be interesting. And that's the buzzer for today's episode of Shot Clock Scribbles. Thank you to every single listener out there. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to follow our new TikTok at Shot Clock Scribbles Podcast for more quick takes and highlights. Also, make sure you're following us on Instagram because we're giving away a free t-shirt to one lucky winner. And for those looking to rep some unique gear, check out our new merch line. Details and orders can be placed via the merch highlight on our Instagram profile. That is Shot Clock Scribbles Podcast on Instagram. Keep those likes, comments, and shares coming. And as always, keep loving basketball, yo. Until next time, keep your shot clock winding down and your spirits up. And make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to audio. That's it for me. And I'll report back after these play-in games on Tuesday and Wednesday. All right, that's it for now. Cheers.